At that moment, inside the sealed chamber, stillness gave way to turmoil, and black demonic chi began to billow and churn. At the center of it, two tiny vortices appeared out of nowhere. Spinning violently, they turned into two spiraling black columns of energy no thicker than a finger, shooting straight toward Han Li's eyes. His eyes were glowing with a bright blue radiance, like moonlight reflected in a deep well. The instant the black pillars poured into them, the light rippled and blurred. Those eyes became like two bottomless abysses, endlessly swallowing the surging demonic chi. Before long they turned dim and mist-laden, deep as unfathomable chasms, impossible to see through. At the same time, he drew his hands back before him and formed a strange hand seal. Then he simply held the posture in silence, unmoving. Circle after circle of purple gold light rippled out from beneath him, spreading layer upon layer into the surrounding space. The years drifted by, and in the blink of an eye, several had passed. Inside the stone chamber all was silent. Han Li, dressed in blue robes, still sat cross-legged, preserving the same hand seal and guarding posture as before. The purple gold scales that had once covered his body had long since vanished, and the demonic chi surrounding him had disappeared as well. Only the rings of purple gold light beneath him remained, still spreading outward like ripples on water. Then, all at once, he brought his hands together and let out a sharp cry. His eyelids snapped open. From his pupils burst two solid beams of violet gold light, like twin lamps flooding the entire chamber with brilliance. Every speck of dust inside the room became visible down to the smallest detail. Even the many restrictions he had laid down earlier could now be seen at a glance. Han Li lifted his head slightly and looked out through an opening in the ceiling. Above the boundless sky, white clouds drifted in slow motion, and even the tail feathers of the geese flying overhead appeared clearly before his eyes. He could even discern the subtle currents of air and fluctuations in spiritual energy stirred by each beat of their wings. It was as though nothing in heaven or earth could hide from those dark, uncanny eyes. This was the initial achievement of the 9 nether demonic eyes. As for what other abilities they possessed, he still could not say. Those would likely only reveal themselves under special circumstances in the future. Still, the increase in his eyesight was obvious. Compared with his former spirit eyes of clarity, they were many times stronger. A moment later, all the strange phenomena in his eyes began to fade. The violet radiance slowly retreated, and his gaze returned to its silver-gray sheen. The corners of his mouth curled slightly. He raised a hand and brushed it across his cheek. The Dragon 5 mask flickered briefly, then became the face of an ordinary young man with somewhat pale skin, while his silver-gray eyes turned black once more. Han Li stood up, stretched his limbs, opened the door to the chamber and walked out. This seclusion had not been especially short. During that time, Reverend Jingyang and Immortal Venerate Hotfire had both come by, but after the puppet informed them Han Li was in retreat, neither had disturbed him, and both had left on their own. So once Han Li emerged, he planned to pay each of them a visit first. It was deep winter in Wild Crane Valley. A great snowfall had turned the mountains and forests entirely white. Pines and bamboo alike wore thick coats of snow, and the stone path through the woods was buried beneath more than half a foot of it. When Han Li left his cave dwelling, he did not ride the wind. Instead, he walked slowly along the snow, listening to its soft crunch beneath his feet, and admiring the frost-laden scenery on either side of the path as he headed deeper into the valley. Halfway there, he suddenly noticed faint outlines of rooftops and upturned eaves deep in the distant woods. They had not been there before, clearly newly built during his seclusion. As he was puzzling over this, a figure stepped out from behind a huge boulder on the mountain path. Though the snow had already stopped, the man was still holding a dark red oil paper umbrella as he walked toward the valley entrance. As they drew near, Han Li saw his face clearly. He was an exceptionally handsome young man, with what looked like powder on his face, and the red cloak he wore only made his complexion seem even paler. As they passed each other, the young man gave Han Li a faint smile and a slight bow, but said nothing. Han Li returned the gesture just as lightly and likewise remained silent. They continued on their separate ways, leaving behind only 4 lines of footprints in the snow, growing farther and farther apart. Could he be one of the newcomers to the valley? Han Li wondered. Shaking his head, he continued on. After walking several more miles along the mountain road, He finally reached the cliffside where Immortal Venerate Hotfire's cave residence stood, only to see a figure flying up from the cliff, clearly about to head deeper into the valley. "Fellow Taoist Hotfire, where are you rushing off to?" Hanli called out. Hotfire, who had only just taken flight, halted at once and turned back, descending again. "Fellow Taoist Li, you've come out of seclusion?" Hotfire asked with a smile. "I only just came out today. I heard you had come looking for me before, so I thought I'd come pay you a visit at once," Hanli said with a smile. "When I came before, you were in retreat, so I didn't wish to disturb you," Hotfire replied with a nod. "Oh? Was there something you needed?" Hanli asked in puzzlement. "Nothing major. I only wanted to remind you that for the time being, you should avoid using the Fireleaf Sect Elder token to enter Jukuin's inner city." "And why is that?" Hanli asked, slightly startled. For nearly 200 years now, Jukuin City has been somewhat unsettled. Black Mountain Immortal Palace has been checking the identities of those entering the city more strictly. If you use it now, I'm afraid it may only bring you trouble. Hotfire sighed. "What? Has something serious happened in the city?" Hanli immediately thought of what had happened after the auction, and wondered whether there had been further developments. "It's a long story. As it happens, we're all gathering today. Since you're out of seclusion, come with me and I'll explain when we get there," Hotfire said. He frowned faintly at first, then smiled again. "Very well," Hanli said, temporarily suppressing his doubts. The two of them rose into the air together in streaks of light and soon arrived at a broad cliff deep within the valley. The cliff jutted several dozen yards out from the mountain wall on the right side of the gorge, and atop it stood an octagonal pavilion, also covered in snow, with a thick white layer piled on its roof. Inside the pavilion was a stone table, and seated around it were three figures already waiting: Yuziki, Wushua, and Duan Yuzai. When they saw Hanli and Hotfire arrive, all three rose to greet them. After exchanging courtesies, Duan Yuzai turned to Hanli and asked, "Fellow Taoist Li, when did you come out of seclusion?" "Only today. Quite a coincidence that I should happen to emerge just as everyone is gathering," Hanli replied with a smile. "I heard from fellow Taoist Jingyang before that." Before Yuziki could finish, Wushua tugged lightly at his sleeve, cutting him off. He froze for a moment, then realized he had spoken out of turn, and a trace of guilt showed on his face. "It's no matter. What is there that cannot be mentioned? The pill I refined before did indeed fail to produce the ideal result. In the future I'll simply have to seek another method," Hanli said lightly and without concern. "Fellow Taoist Li truly possesses an uncommon temperament. It seems I worried too much," Wushua said with a slight bow and a smile. "Fairy Mo is thoughtful and considerate on my behalf. It is I who should thank you. By the way, why isn't fellow Taoist Jingyang here?" Hanli returned the bow and asked. "Fellow Taoist Jingyang hasn't returned to the valley in over 100 years. He only said he had some matters to deal with," Yuziki replied. Hanli guessed it was likely some business at 100 Creations Mountain, and did not pursue the matter further. Instead he said, "Then he has missed out today. I happen to bring some red mulberry wine with me. Shall we all have a few cups?" At those words everyone's eyes lit up and smiles appeared on their faces. They sat down again. Hanli took out a wine jar and cups and poured for everyone. Glancing up at Yuziki, he noticed that for once the man had not brought his chin, and Duan Yuzai had not already laid out a chessboard as usual. Hanli's brows drew together. "By the way, before fellow Taoist Hotfire, you only told me half the matter. Can you say now what exactly has happened?" Hanli asked, turning toward him. "You must have noticed it yourself in the valley. Recently, Wild Crane Valley has gained many new residents," Hotfire said, lifting his wine cup to his lips without drinking. "On my way here, I think I passed a young man carrying an oil paper umbrella and wearing a red cloak. Is he one of the newcomers you mean?" Hanli asked with a nod. "That one is called Feng Qingyuan. He's only one of them. In the last 200 years, 50 or 60 newcomers like him have moved into the various valleys of Idle Cloud Mountain," Duan Yuzai said. "So many?" Hanli said in surprise. Idle Cloud Mountain had always been a place one could come and go freely, but in the past, over the course of 200 years, the entire mountain might see no more than 10 outsiders settle there, sometimes only one or two. After all, there were not many cultivators who turned away from the immortal path to cultivate the heart and nurture their nature instead. So the current situation was indeed unusual. If it were only a matter of more newcomers, that would not be much of an issue. As long as everyone followed the rules here and left one another alone, that would be fine. But in recent years, strange incidents have happened again and again in the mountain. People have been disappearing one after another from the different valleys, Wushua said, taking up the thread. Just last month, that pair of Taoist cultivators in neighboring Flower Moon Valley had their cave residence destroyed overnight, and then vanished into thin air, Yuziki added. Hanli had met that couple once before and knew they were both early true immortal cultivators who had always appeared deeply affectionate in public. He asked, "Did the missing people share any particular traits?" From powerful golden immortal cultivators to lowly cultivators at the spirit transformation stage, from stunningly beautiful female cultivators to bent-backed old men at the end of their lives, there doesn't seem to be any common feature, Yuziki replied after a brief pause. "And no one has come out to investigate?" Hanli asked, frowning. "How would anyone investigate?" Hotfire said with a bitter smile, shaking his head. "Idle Cloud Mountain is full of recluses who keep out of worldly affairs. No one forms factions here, and there has never been any unified organization. Who would investigate? Even if anyone has looked into it, it has only been in secret and for themselves. Besides, the missing people are of all ages and both genders, and no one knows much about their backgrounds, so there's no way to tell whether they are connected." "That's right. Who's to say these people didn't simply leave the mountain? But in the past, even if someone departed, they would at least let a few friends in the valley know. This kind of silent disappearance and in such numbers has never happened before," Yuziki continued. "The only thing we can infer is that it has something to do with the newcomers who have joined over the past 200 years. After all, the valleys were peaceful for so many years before they arrived," Duan Yuzai said, his gaze darkening. "Since you suspect that, has no one looked into their identities and origins?" Hanli asked. On the surface they all seemed perfectly normal, and with the valley's rules as they are, no one questioned them at first. But now that things have grown more and more murky, naturally some people have begun investigating in secret. The result, however, is that the more they investigate, the more chaotic things become. All sorts of bizarre rumors have started to spread, Yuziki said with a sigh. "Oh? What kind of rumors?" Hanli asked. "Some say man-eating fiends from the devil race have infiltrated the valleys. Some say bloodthirsty evil cultivators are at work. Some say Immortal Palace has sent spies to destroy the peace here and wipe out this loose community. There are even those who say it is connected to the Silver Fox affair that happened earlier in Jukuin City, that the strange thief could not escape the Black Mountain Immortal region and so hid in Idle Cloud Mountain," Yuziki said. "In short, everyone has a different story and people are growing increasingly uneasy," Duan Yuzai said, shaking his head. "If you ask me, all that nonsense has no firm basis at all. It feels more like someone deliberately released those rumors as a smokescreen, just to confuse people and cloud the truth," Hotfire said slowly after drinking a cup of wine. Hanli's thoughts stirred at those words. If these strange incidents really were connected to the Silver Fox affair, then it was entirely possible that people from Black Mountain Immortal Palace were infiltrating Idle Cloud Mountain. If so, the place would likely become more and more unstable in the future. Idle Cloud Mountain was always a place beyond the control of any powerful sect or immortal palace, almost a lawless land where countless loose cultivators gathered. It was only because of the lingering prestige of that wandering cultivator, who once rose to prominence out of nowhere, that it managed to remain a hidden paradise until now. But if chaos has truly begun and no one remains to suppress it, then I fear. Wushua sighed. She left the sentence unfinished, but everyone understood the worry beneath her words, and for a time they all fell silent. The pavilion grew utterly quiet. Only the sounds of wine cups touching the stone table remained, and the atmosphere became oppressive. Even if the heavens collapse, there will be those with greater doubt to hold them up. What is there to worry about? The world is vast. Idle Cloud Mountain and Wild Crane Valley are hardly the only places in it. If we truly want to live leisurely lives, where could we not go? Hotfire suddenly said in a loud voice, setting his cup down with force. "I think those words are a little too glib, fellow Taoist Hotfire," Hanli said with a laugh. The rest of us may be free to wander wherever the world allows, but as the Grand Elder of Fireleaf Sect, I doubt you can be quite as carefree as you make it sound. There are some truths that are better left unsaid. That is a lesson fellow Taoist Li should really learn, Hotfire said helplessly, shooting Hanli a resentful look. The others could not help smiling, and the heavy atmosphere eased a little. After enjoying the fine wine, the group spent another half-day chatting idly about this and that before taking their leave. Hanli naturally did not raise the matter of the valley disappearances again, but he could tell that although these carefree recluses had outwardly regained their calm and no longer seemed to dwell on the earlier discussion, the unease in their hearts had not lessened much. Hanli left together with Hotfire. At parting, the latter once again urged him not to act under the identity of a Fireleaf Sect Outer Elder for the time being, saying it might only bring him unnecessary trouble lately. As for the exact reason, he still did not explain, and Hanli did not press him. After returning to his cave residence, Hanli opened the Blossom Branch Grotto and checked on the spirit medicines and Dao soldiers. Then he entered the secret chamber again and resumed secluded cultivation, continuing his study of the true mantra transformation will scripture and several other time-related arts. Yet barely half a year later, trouble reached Wild Crane Valley as well. One morning, Hanli was just about to make a trip to the Spirit Herb Garden and use green liquid to water the Dao soldiers when Duan Yuzai arrived unexpectedly and was already standing outside the cave residence. Hanli had no choice but to straighten himself up, open the gate, and go out to receive him. But the moment he saw the look on Duan Yuzai's face, every polite greeting died in his throat. He immediately asked, "What happened? Why do you look so anxious? Has something gone wrong?" Yuziki was attacked. He's gravely injured and on the verge of death. Fellow Taoist Li, please save him, Duan Yuzai said quickly, his brows tightly knit, without wasting a single extra word. Where is he? Hanli asked sharply. Clear Wind Cliff, Duan Yuzai replied at once. The instant he heard that, a streak of light flashed around Hanli's body and he vanished from the spot. Duan Yuzai stared in slight surprise, then also turned into a streak of light and shot away. Only a few breaths later, a green flash appeared over Clear Wind Cliff, and Hanli emerged from it. One sweep of his gaze showed him a wide patch of snow near the cliff's edge stained with vivid blood, frozen into a mass of dirty red ice crystals. In the center of the blood-stained ice lay a young man in white robes soaked through with blood. His face was deathly pale, his eyes wide open but devoid of all spirit. It was unmistakably Yuziki. Beside him, Emo Wushua, equally pale, crouched half-kneeling. Silver light poured from both her hands, forming a shimmering curtain of light around his body, as she continuously infused him with immortal spiritual power. Fellow Taoist Li, Emo Wushua said, and at the sight of Hanli a trace of hope appeared on her pallid face. Hanli nodded to her and strode forward. Reaching one hand through the silver curtain, he grasped Yuziki's wrist. At the same time, violet light flashed in his eyes, and his pupils instantly turned into crystalline purple as he began examining Yuziki's body. With that one glance, Yuziki's entire physical condition became incomparably clear before him. A moment later, Hanli's brows drew tightly together, and his expression grew more and more grave. In the end, a flicker of anger even flashed through his eyes. Seeing his face, Emo Wushua knew things were dire, and her own expression turned even paler. Don't worry. He can still be saved, Hanli said without looking at her. That single sentence made her heart leap, and her eyes grew moist at once. As she looked at Yuziki, the feelings in her gaze were no longer concealed in the slightest. Duan Yuzai, who had already returned and been standing a short distance away, hurried over the moment he heard those words. Hanli withdrew the 9 nether demonic eyes, though his brows remained tightly furrowed. With a turn of his wrist, he produced a pill as clear and lustrous as jade. Pinching Yuziki's jaw open, he placed it in his mouth. Yuziki gave no reaction at all and could not swallow it. Hanli raised a finger and tapped his throat, guiding the pill down along his esophagus into his abdomen. At once, a layer of pale white light began glowing from Yuziki's lower abdomen, then flowed outward through his limbs and meridians. Emo Wushua soon heard a series of faint cracking sounds coming from throughout Yuziki's body. A trace of confusion appeared in her eyes, and she looked to Hanli. That's the sound of broken bones knitting back together and shattered fissures reconnecting, Hanli explained in a low voice. As you can see, nearly all the bones and tendons in his body were broken. His soul was also left badly damaged by a forced soul search. His whole body is like a broken house with holes in every wall, unable to withstand any further forceful treatment. That's why we didn't dare move him to your cave residence without permission. We had to ask you to come here instead, Duan Yuzai said with a nod. The pill I gave him is only a true immortal grade mending pill. It can merely reconnect his bones and tendons for now, patching up the worst of the damage. Only after that can I begin treating his injuries properly. As things stand, his life has at least been preserved, Hanli said with a sigh. Hearing that, both Mo Wuxue and Duan Yuzai let out slight breaths of relief, though the worry between their brows did not ease much. Once the last of the cracking sounds had ceased, Hanli turned his wrist again, and a white jade bottle appeared in his palm, filled halfway with pale violet liquid. This was a soul-nourishing spirit liquid he had concocted from the essence of soul birth flowers. Back when he had refined his earth deity incarnation, he had discovered that it had considerable effect in restoring soul damage, and later he had prepared more of it by other means. But after his cultivation had fully recovered, and his soul had grown increasingly powerful thanks to the refining spirit technique, he had never again had the chance to use it. Today, however, it finally proved useful. He uncorked the bottle and poured every last drop into Yuzuki's mouth, releasing a strange, delicate fragrance. Then Hanli passed a hand gently over Yuzuki's eyes, closing his lids. Who could have done this? What kind of grudge would they have to beat him into such a state? Mo Wuxue asked, her gaze passing over Yuzuki's pale face. By now her usual composure had returned. There may not have been any personal grudge. It's also possible they wanted to get some information from him, Hanli said, shaking his head. Judging by the look of it, the attacker succeeded, Duan Yuzai said with a heavy sigh, looking down at Yuzuki. From the condition of fellow Taoist Yu's soul, most likely he triggered some kind of soul restriction while the other party was forcibly searching his memories, causing his sea of consciousness to rupture on its own. That person probably failed. But perhaps because of that failure, they flew into a rage and used a blunt weapon to break every bone in his body inch by inch, then threw him here on Clear-Wind Cliff to die, Hanli said grimly. Mo Wuxue's gaze trembled slightly when she heard that. Hidden within her sleeve, the vein stood out on her slender hand as she clenched it tightly. Hanli suddenly thought of something. He immediately bent down and pressed a palm to the center of Yuzuki's brow. Invisible ripples spread from his hand as he carefully examined him once more. So it was as I thought, Hanli said slowly, withdrawing his hand. What is it, fellow Taoist Li? Mo Wuxue asked at once. The person behind this was truly vicious. They placed a restriction on fellow Taoist Yu's nascent soul, so that it could not escape his body. The moment his physical body's vitality is completely extinguished and his soul fully dissipates, the nascent soul will dissolve as well. He would not even have had the chance to flee and possess another body. Fortunately, you sealed off his sea of consciousness in time, and continuously infused him with immortal spiritual power to protect his fleshly body. That gave me the sliver of opportunity one needed to save him, Hanli said, turning to Mo Wuxue. But Mo Wuxue only looked puzzled. Seal off his sea of consciousness? I only knew to keep pouring immortal spiritual power into him. I had no idea I needed to seal his sea of consciousness as well. Hearing this, Hanli turned his eyes toward Duan Yuzai with a questioning look. It wasn't me either. Fairy Mo was the first to find fellow Taoist Yu. She was worried you were still in seclusion, so she sent word to me. Only after that did I go to fetch you, Duan Yuzai said, shaking his head. These days the valley hasn't been peaceful. I had intended to sit in still meditation for a while, but I couldn't quiet my mind, so this morning I went to Clear-Wind Cliff again. That was when I found him lying there in the snow, his aura nearly extinguished. I almost thought he was already dead, Mo Wuxue said with a sigh. Hanli listened and said nothing more. After placing his palm against Yuzuki's brow once again to probe him, he stood and walked to the edge of Clear-Wind Cliff, looking down below. The doubts in his heart only deepened. Who had sealed Yuzuki's sea of consciousness for him? Fellow Taoist Li, how is he now? Mo Wuxue asked. His body and soul have been stabilized for the time being, but he is not truly out of danger yet. Let's bring him back to my cave residence first. After that, he will still need a very long period of recovery before there is any real chance of saving him completely, Hanli said after a moment's thought. Many thanks, fellow Taoist Li, Imo Wushua said, bowing deeply. Hanli froze for a moment. His gaze moved back and forth between Imo Wushua and Yuziki for a few moments before understanding finally dawned on him. Yuziki. Could this be counted as finding fortune through misfortune? Suppressing that thought, Hanli swept a sleeve. A sheet of green light lifted Yuziki from beneath and carried him floating beside Hanli as they sped off together toward his cave residence. More than half a month later, Reverend Jingyang, who had only just returned to the valley, along with Immortal Venerate Hotfire and the others, received Hanli's message and came one after another. Together with Duan Yuzai and Imo Wushua, they all gathered in Hanli's cave residence. As with Maguang, the Taoist Xie had been stored by Hanli inside the Blossom Branch Grotto. Only a few puppets and Dao soldiers remained in the residence itself. Yuziki had been settled in the side chamber where Maguang had once stayed. After this period of treatment, his aura had stabilized somewhat, but the damage to his soul remained severe, and there was still no sign of him waking. After examining him, Hotfire and Reverend Jingyang, two men who usually loved nothing better than bickering, rarely found themselves in complete agreement. Whoever had attacked Yuziki had to be found and utterly destroyed. I warned all of you before that the current state of affairs was becoming turbulent, and that Idle Cloud Mountain would only grow more unstable with time. I just didn't expect things to come to this so soon. Jingyang sighed after taking a deep swig of wine. Fellow Taoist Jingyang, have you heard some news from elsewhere that the rest of us don't know? Imo Wushua asked, frowning. It's nothing secret. Anyone with a few Immortal Origin Stones to spare could buy the news in Jukuan City, Jingyang replied, shaking his head. If that's so, then say it first and let us hear. It has been some time since any of us went to Jukuan City, Hanli said, glancing at him. Exactly. At a time like this, stop keeping us in suspense, Hotfire added. There's actually nothing all that unusual about it. You all know about the silver fox thief causing havoc in Jukuan City, don't you? There were some developments afterward. The Grand Palace Master of Black Mountain Immortal Palace used the excuse that the culprit might have fled into Idle Cloud Mountain. Together with the supervisory immortal envoy stationed in Jukuan City, he pressured the wandering cultivator who had laid down the rules for Idle Cloud Mountain in years past, demanding permission for Immortal Palace cultivators to infiltrate the valleys here and investigate. You mean the one who attacked fellow Taoist? You may have been someone from Black Mountain Immortal Palace? Hotfire asked with a frown. I didn't say that, Jingyang replied, waving a hand. I'm only saying that people from Black Mountain Immortal Palace have indeed mixed themselves into Idle Cloud Mountain and muddied the waters here. In fact, even more people from the Robed Exchange Society have slipped in. Neither side is easy to deal with. The people of the Wheel of Reincarnation Temple have been moving about here for far more than just a day or two. Wasn't everything peaceful before? If you ask me, it's still more likely to have been someone from Immortal Palace, Duan Yuzai said, shaking his head. The Robed Exchange Society, like the 10 Directions Tower and the Impermanence Alliance, was one of the subordinate organizations of the Wheel of Reincarnation Temple, with branches spread widely across the immortal realms. Could fellow Taoist you be one of the Wheel of Reincarnation Temple's people? Hanli suddenly asked. At those words, Hotfire and Duan Yuzai first looked at Jingyang, then at Imo Wushua. One of them was close to Yuziki, the other the woman he admired, yet both shook their heads to show that they did not know. There's no point speculating like this. Let's wait until fellow Taoist you wakes up and ask him directly, Imo Wushua said. No matter what, all of you should be even more careful in your actions within the valley from now on, Jingyang said, raising his wine gourd to his lips, though in the end he did not drink. After the others left, Hanli felt increasingly uneasy. It seemed to him that this place was no longer suitable as a refuge. And yet, if he were to leave Wild Crane Valley rashly at a time like this, he might instead draw the attention of Immortal Palace. That would only make matters worse. Better to remain a while longer and watch how things developed. Besides, Yuziki's injuries had not yet healed, and he still needed Han Li's long-term care and treatment. After thinking it over for a while, Han Li began preparing the various materials needed for a formation, and set to work first on removing the restriction from Yuzuki's nascent soul. Time flashed by and more than 5 years passed. One morning Han Li sat quietly in the secret chamber, holding the heaven palm bottle in one hand while his other wrist turned and brought out the emerald green gourd. He opened the heaven palm bottle and tipped it slightly over the mouth of the gourd, allowing a single drop of green liquid to fall. Over these years, with the intermittent ripening brought about by the green liquid, the dull-colored patch near the mouth of the gourd had gradually faded away and become nearly indistinguishable from the rest. Still, Han Li had always felt there was just a little more needed before it could be considered truly mature. Then came a clear ringing sound. The mouth of the gourd let out a pleasant chime, and the drop of green liquid that fell upon it did not splash even in the slightest. The gourd absorbed it entirely. Immediately afterward, the emerald gourd erupted with brilliant green light, growing dazzlingly bright. Countless green runes all over its surface flickered wildly, leaping and dancing like boiling water. An indescribably powerful force of law abruptly appeared and spread outward in waves. At that moment, with a soft pop, a sound came from the mouth of the gourd. To Han Li's astonishment, the emerald gourd opened by itself, without anyone touching it. Has it fully matured? Han Li murmured, a flash in his eyes. The instant the words left his lips, a dim green light gushed from the gourd's opening and transformed into a mass of ghostly green flame that wrapped around the entire gourd and suspended it in midair, licking and swirling around it in a complicated dance as though refining and washing it. After several dozen breaths, the flame suddenly began to contract and diminish, until it vanished completely. The gourd's surface, however, had been utterly renewed. It was now pure green like flawless jade, its surface gleaming with crystalline luster. Yet when touched it carried a warm, smooth softness that felt unexpectedly pleasant. A thrill rose in Han Li's heart. He was just about to examine it more closely when his brow suddenly furrowed sharply. A fierce, burning pain had erupted in one of his arms. He quickly yanked up his sleeve and looked down. On his arm there appeared a faint green sword-shaped imprint, flickering in and out of visibility. It was none other than the profound heavenly beheading spirit sword, which had vanished many years ago. Immediately afterward, he felt the blood in his arm surge wildly toward that imprint. A layer of blood-red light spread over it, and the previously indistinct green mark began to grow clearer and clearer. Could the beheading spirit sword be reviving? Han Li's heart jumped with astonished joy. Though the profound heavenly beheading spirit sword had originated in the lower realm, it was still a profound heavenly treasure containing the power of the laws of an interface. Even in the true immortal realm, it could be considered an exceedingly rare innate immortal treasure. There had to be many subtleties within it that even he had yet to discover. But before his delight could fully form, a sharp pain like searing fire tore through his arm. The green imprint suddenly turned into a dark green line of light that pierced out through his skin and shot straight into the mouth of the gourd, vanishing inside in an instant. Han Li was shocked. Ignoring the intense pain in his arm, he seized the gourd at once, pressed it against his forehead, and sent his spiritual sense into the emerald space within. Inside, green radiance filled the space. The enormous green vortex there still turned slowly, and 72 bamboo cloud-swarm swords floated quietly within it, each emitting a gentle blue glow like water, every blade bright and sharp. Han Li swept his gaze through the space, but found no trace of the profound heavenly beheading spirit sword. So he sank his mind deeper and entered the second level of space within the emerald gourd. The instant he entered, Han Li felt dizzy, as though his vision were spinning. Green light flickered repeatedly before his eyes. When he focused his gaze, he saw that the green sphere floating silently in that space before was now pulsing between brightness and darkness. Layer after layer of green rings spread from it, releasing waves of strange fluctuations. And on that sphere there was now a green sword-shaped pattern. It was unmistakably the mark of the profound heavenly beheading spirit sword. When Han Li tried to make contact with it using his spiritual sense, a dark green ray shot out from the sword mark at once, exploded in midair, and instantly shattered the divine sense he had sent toward it. Han Li let out a muffled groan, his eyes flying open as he gasped for breath. His sea of consciousness roared with thunder, and his head throbbed with severe pain. He hastily closed his eyes again and adjusted his breathing. Only after a long while did his expression gradually return to normal. Though I don't know why this has happened, it seems it has become one with the gourd, he murmured at last, rubbing his still aching brow. The profound heavenly beheading spirit sword had not truly been reborn. Rather, the remnant power of the law of destruction within it seemed to have been drawn into the emerald gourd and fused with it. In a sense at least, nothing had gone to waste. Only now, after all these changes, he had no idea what new powers the fully matured profound heavenly gourd might possess. At that thought, Hanli raised a hand and beckoned, softly uttering the word, "Swift." With a sharp whoosh, a streak of fiery red light flashed out. A fire-attributed immortal sword shot forth, circling once around the secret chamber like a flaming W-arm before hurtling back toward him. At the same time, Hanli slapped the bottom of the Xintian gourd. The emerald gourd immediately spun in place, its mouth turning toward the fire sword, and a ribbon of green light sprayed out from within to coil around it. The moment the flaming immortal sword was entangled by the green light, it halted in midair, and the flames on its surface rapidly faded away. Hanli stared at the sight and was briefly taken aback. It looked no different from what had happened before. After a brief moment of thought, he formed another sword incantation and tried to command the flying sword to break free of the green light's restraint. The result was immediate. Just as flames began to rise again along the blade, a dark green ray shot out from the gourd in an instant. With a crack, it struck the sword and shattered it to pieces. The broken fragments, still wrapped in blazing, searing flames, exploded apart under the impact of that destructive ray. Before any of their power could erupt, another stream of green light swept over them and dragged every last piece back into the gourd. The change had come so quickly that Hanli stood stunned for the span of a breath before reacting. At once, he released his spiritual sense into the gourd to inspect what had happened. Inside the second layer of space within the Xintian gourd, he found the shattered remains of the fire-attributed immortal sword. The fragments were being suspended within the rippling fluctuations around the green sphere, slowly revolving. Tiny points of crystalline light drifted away from them. The spiritual power contained within them was being stripped away bit by bit, absorbed into the inner wall, and fed back into the Xintian gourd. What surprised Hanli even more was that in the void outside the green sphere, a red spark no larger than a mote of flame was floating quietly there, faint waves of fire-attributed law power emanating from it. Clearly, the law power contained within that fire-attributed immortal sword had not been absorbed by the gourd. Instead, it had simply been stored away. That discovery only deepened Hanli's doubts. He wanted to test the Xintian gourd again, and see exactly what changes had occurred in its divine abilities. But just then his brow twitched. He withdrew his mind from the gourd and turned his gaze toward the door of the chamber, saying softly, "Awake!" With a wave of his hand, he put away the Xintian gourd, rose and left the secret chamber, heading for the side room where Emoguang had previously lived. As soon as he entered, he saw Yuziki propped halfway up, trying to force himself upright. But his whole body seemed devoid of strength, and no matter how hard he struggled, he could not sit up. "Do not be anxious, fellow Taoist you. Your sea of consciousness was badly damaged and your soul is unsettled. You must be feeling the whole world spin right now. How could you possibly get up?" Hanli stepped forward, pressed a hand to his shoulder, and gently pushed him back down. "It was fellow Taoist Li who saved me, was it not? Earlier my spirit had already stabilized a little. I could vaguely sense you, but I could never wake, nor could I thank you," Yuziki said smoothly enough, though his eyes were dull and unfocused, unable to settle properly on Hanli's face. "There is no need for thanks. Do you still remember who attacked you?" Hanli waved a hand dismissively and asked in a grave tone. "I have been trying to recall that from the moment my consciousness returned, but I have no answer. I only vaguely remember that person was forcing me to reveal information about someone in the valley. As for who it was, I cannot remember that either." Yuziki showed little change in expression, as though he no longer remembered the brutal treatment he had suffered. He merely shook his head slowly. Hearing this, Hanli frowned slightly. A suspicion rose in his heart. Could the person they had been interrogating Yuziki about have been himself? After all, he was not only on the Heavenly Court's immortal extermination list, he was also, in a sense, a member of the Reincarnation Palace, and had cultivated the spirit refinement art. Any one of those things alone was enough to make the heavenly court desperate to eliminate him. Back then, he had concealed his identity and left the North Cold Immortal region. His ties to the Reincarnation Palace had not run especially deep, and through various methods he had hidden his aura and baleful chi, then retreated into seclusion here in Idle Cloud Mountain. Only then had he managed to pass several hundred peaceful years. But judging from the current situation, who could say whether he would be able to keep hiding much longer? How long has it been since I was attacked? Yuzuki steadied himself for a moment before asking again. Not long. Just a little over 5 years, Hanli answered, drawing back his thoughts. So I was unconscious for 5 whole years. I have truly troubled you, fellow Taoist Li. I do not even know how I could ever repay this life-saving grace and the care you have shown me. Yuzuki fell silent for a while after hearing this, then spoke with feeling. I dare not claim all the credit. In truth, the first to find and rescue you 5 years ago was Fairy Mo. Without her, you would not have lasted until I arrived to treat you. And over these past 5 years, she has often come here to visit you, Hanli said with a faint smile. Wuxue. She really did? Yuzuki's expression finally changed, and he looked visibly shaken. Would I lie to you? Hanli countered. Of course not, of course not. But, Yuzuki murmured, his voice trailing off at the end, you can put aside the great path of cultivation, yet when it comes to this little path of love, why are you so hesitant? What, are you expecting Fairy Mo to be the one to bare her heart first and turn around to pursue you instead? Hanli said bluntly, finding it hard to watch. Certainly not. Yuzuki said hurriedly. How would he dare think such a thing? Think about it. If we had failed to save you this time, would you have regretted it where Fairy Mo is concerned? Hanli asked again. When it came to matters of love, Hanli himself had never had much experience. Even so, he knew that as a man, one ought to be a little braver and more fearless. If one's heart longed for something, one should pursue it with all one's strength. Had he not done exactly that with Nangongwan back then? Yuzuki fell silent again for quite some time. In the end he sincerely said, Your words have awakened me from a dream, fellow Taoist Li. I am enlightened. Seeing that he had understood, Hanli let the matter drop and said no more. After giving him a pill beneficial to the soul, and instructing him to rest properly, Hanli departed. Yuzuki's emotional knot had been untied, but Hanli himself grew ever more worried. A month later, Yuzuki decided to return to his own cave dwelling to recuperate, and Hanli began making preparations to leave Idle Cloud Mountain, and even the Black Earth Immortal region. In the blink of an eye, several more years passed. The incidents of cultivators in Floating Cloud Mountain being attacked or disappearing only intensified. The peace and tranquility of the past were gone, and one hermit cultivator after another began moving away. By then, Hanli had already packed up everything in his cave dwelling, including all the formation tools laid out in various places. He had long intended to leave, but had delayed in order to avoid attracting attention. Now, however, many others were already relocating from the Floating Cloud Mountain range. If he left at this moment, it likely would not draw much notice. Of course, if anyone chose to follow him, he would not mind using the most primitive of methods in some secluded place to ensure that person would never speak again. After resting with his eyes closed for a while in the secret chamber, Hanli left his dwelling and headed toward the little pavilion by the stream where he often met with Venerable Hot Flame and the others. To his surprise, Venerable Hot Flame and Master Jingyang were both already gathered in the pavilion, apparently discussing something. Their expressions were all rather grim. Yuzuki was there as well, his face still somewhat pale. Mo Wuxue stood beside him, and the two of them were speaking quietly to each other. When Hanli approached, the group stopped talking. Fellow Taoist Li, good that you've come. We were just about to look for you, Master Jingyang said, waving him over. Oh? What are you all discussing? Hanli nodded slightly to the others in greeting and stepped into the pavilion. The situation in the valley has become ever more difficult to make sense of. Just last month alone, 3 fellow Taoists were attacked, and one of them even fell outright, Duan Yuzai said gravely. Hanli frowned at this. To avoid being noticed, he had spent these years secluded in his cave dwelling, and had not tried to investigate the cause of the unrest in Floating Cloud Mountain. Now it seemed that the situation there was even more chaotic than he had heard. Indeed, Floating Cloud Mountain is no longer what it used to be. We are discussing how to avoid being caught up in this storm, Venerable Hot Flame said with a sigh. What are your plans, fellow Taoist Hot Flame? Hanli asked, glancing at him. What plans could I have? I sought peace and leisure, only to find more trouble instead. I plan to return to my sect for the time being. It should still be relatively safe there, Venerable Hot Flame said with a bitter smile. I also plan to leave for a while and go to Jian City. I know a few fellow Taoists there, and I can likely stay with them for some time, Duan Yuzai said with a sigh as well. What about you, fellow Taoist Li? Master Jingyang asked, looking toward Han Li. Though I am somewhat reluctant to leave Wild Crane Valley, as the saying goes, a gentleman does not stand beneath a collapsing wall. Like all of you, I also plan to depart, Han Li said, sounding somewhat regretful. Do you have somewhere to go? If not, why not come to 100 Creations Mountain? I can absolutely guarantee your safety there. If you have any other conditions, feel free to name them. I will do my utmost to satisfy them, Master Jingyang said, once again trying to recruit Han Li. Over the years, Master Jingyang had also revealed his identity to Venerable Hot Flame and the others, so no one worried over his safety. Many thanks, fellow Taoist Jingyang, but I already have a destination in mind. For now, I do not intend to go to your sect, Han Li said, understanding his intentions and politely declining. Very well. If you change your mind in the future, you may come to 100 Creations Mountain to find me at any time, Master Jingyang said regretfully. And what about fellow Taoist you and fellow Taoist Mo? Venerable Hot Flame asked. Mo Wushua quietly gazed around Wild Crane Valley and said nothing. Yuziki meanwhile looked at Mo Wushua's elegant profile, as if wanting to speak but holding himself back. Fellow Taoist you Fairy Mo, if the two of you have nowhere to go for the moment, you may also come to 100 Creations Mountain first. I can recommend positions for both of you there. There would be little danger and the work would not be too burdensome, Master Jingyang said with a smile, looking first at Mo Wushua and then at Yuziki. Many thanks, fellow Taoist Jingyang, but for now I do not intend to leave this place, Mo Wushua said, shaking her head. At those words everyone showed surprise with the sole exception of Yuziki, whose face remained unchanged, as if he had already known. Fellow Taoist Mo, Floating Cloud Mountain is full of danger now. Your cultivation may not be weak, but staying behind is far too risky, Duan Yuzai said hurriedly. Master Jingyang and the others all nodded and joined in trying to persuade her. Thank you all for your kindness, but I once swore that I would remain here in Wild Crane Valley, waiting for someone to return, Mo Wushua said, shaking her head again, her expression resolute. Yuziki's face turned suddenly pale at these words, and he lowered his head. Han Li observed the subtle changes in their expressions and frowned slightly, saying nothing. From the look of things, Yuziki had probably already confessed his feelings to Mo Wushua, but there seemed to be some other emotional entanglement between them. Venerable Hot Flame and the other two exchanged glances and likewise kept silent. This was a matter between a man and a woman. As outsiders, they naturally could not interfere. Please trouble fellow Taoist Jingyang to bring fellow Taoist Yu to 100 Creations Mountain, and settle him there properly. His injuries have not yet fully healed, and he still needs some time to recuperate in peace, Mo Wushua said, turning to Master Jingyang. Master Jingyang had just opened his mouth to agree. If you are unwilling to leave, then I will stay and keep you company, Yuziki suddenly stood up and said. A trace of complicated emotion appeared in Mo Wushua's eyes. She lowered her gaze and let out a faint sigh, but she did not refuse. The other four looked at one another, and for a moment no one spoke. Since the two of you have decided to remain here, we can say no more. In a little while, I will set up a layer of 100 Creations Mountain's unique restriction outside Wild Crane Valley. I believe it should have some deterrent effect. Take care, both of you, Master Jingyang said after a pause. Many thanks, fellow Taoist Jingyang. Gratitude showed on Mo Wushua's face as she rose and offered him a formal bow. Her choice to stay did not mean she did not fear death. 100 Creations Mountain's renown spread throughout the Black Mountain Immortal region, and near Jukuin City its name rang like thunder. No one dare defend it lightly. With that layer of restriction in place, they would be much safer in the valley. Yuziki also hurriedly rose to express his thanks. After talking a while longer, the group dispersed to make preparations to leave. Master Jingyang flew toward the outside of the valley to begin setting up the restriction. Emo Wushua also rose and returned to her cave dwelling. Before long, only Hanli and Yuziki remained. Yuziki stared blankly at Emo Wushua's retreating figure. Only after she had entered her dwelling did he finally withdraw his gaze. Seeing this, Hanli inwardly sighed at the depth of the man's devotion. But as for the issue between the two of them, it was no longer his place to be involved. Even so, among these people who had merely happened to meet here by chance, he had still felt traces of warmth and friendship. In the brutal world of immortal cultivation, that alone was already exceedingly rare. It was also why he had been willing to help them. Perhaps only when one lets go of some pursuit of desire, fame, and profit can one pick up again some precious things long since lost. Yet those things are somehow always out of step with this world, fleeting and hard to hold. With a quiet sigh, Hanli flipped his hand and took out a storage ring, handing it over. Fellow Taoist, you take these pills. They should be of some help in recovering from your injuries. Before this, I was already greatly indebted to you for saving my life, fellow Taoist Li. How could I possibly accept your pills as well? These injuries of mine will heal after a few more years of recuperation. Medicinal pills are precious. You should keep them for emergencies, Yuziki said hurriedly, trying to refuse. These pills are of no real use to me anymore, so there is no need to decline. The sooner your injuries heal, the sooner fellow Taoist Mo can stop worrying, Hanli said, brooking no argument as he set the storage ring beside Yuziki. Hearing this, Yuziki fell silent for a moment. He did not continue to refuse, but he looked dejected as he murmured, "In the end, it is because I am too weak. There is no need to lose heart. Your aptitude is not poor. One day, it is not impossible that you may advance into the gold Immortal Realm," Hanli said, patting him on the shoulder. "Perhaps. You flatter me," Yuziki said with a bitter smile. "Fellow Taoist, you let us part here. We shall meet again if fate permits." "Take care," Hanli said, his gaze flickering as he cupped his hands in farewell. "You are leaving so soon?" Yuziki said, stunned. Hanli silently nodded, then turned and flew toward the mouth of the valley. Yuziki watched him go into the distance. Only after a long while did he withdraw his gaze, pick up the storage ring, and send his spiritual sense into it. At once his whole body froze. Inside the storage ring, apart from some healing pills, there was shockingly also a Zhonggu pill capable of stabilizing the Dantian, along with several other medicines useful for assisting a breakthrough into the Gold Immortal Realm. So many precious pills were enough to help him cross the bottleneck into Gold Immortal. "Fellow Taoist Li, I will not forget this kindness. If I survive this calamity, I will surely repay it." Yuziki gripped the storage ring tightly and turned toward his cave dwelling, making the vow in his heart. Hanli flew out of Wild Crane Valley. Master Jingyang was standing outside, as though he had been waiting specifically for him. "Leaving already, fellow Taoist Li?" Master Jingyang stepped forward to greet him. "Yes. Since I must leave sooner or later, I have always preferred sooner to later," Hanli said with a smile. "Are you truly not interested in joining 100 Creations Mountain? If you have any conditions, name them," Master Jingyang asked again, seemingly still unwilling to give up. "Many thanks for your esteem, fellow Taoist Jingyang, but compared to joining some faction, I prefer freedom," Hanli said lightly. "I knew from the first time I saw your eyes that you were someone who pursued freedom. Since every man has his own aspirations, I will not force the matter." Master Jingyang raised his wineskin, took a fierce gulp, and shook his head with a bitter smile, finally seeming to give up. Hanli stood there smiling, saying nothing. "But you and I are good friends. The competition among the Vice Mountain Lords of 100 Creations Mountain is fierce indeed. If there comes a day when I need your help, fellow Taoist Li, you must not refuse," Master Jingyang said bluntly. "That is only natural," Hanli nodded. "Good. Oh, and there is one more matter that may disappoint you. About the method you asked me to find for expelling baleful qi, I have already given the order, but I still have not found anything," Master Jingyang said. "No matter. A method for expelling baleful qi was never going to be easy to find. Please continue searching on my behalf. As it happens, there is something else I would like to trouble you to collect for me, Hanli said. Though somewhat disappointed, he quickly moved on. Oh? What is it? Just say the word, Master Jingyang said. Anything containing the power of the time law. Whether materials or immortal artifacts, it makes no difference, Hanli said directly. The last time he had gained 8 more threads of time law crystal silk, and the restoration speed of the time Dao markings on the mantra treasured wheel had increased again. By now they had fully recovered. The restoration speed of the Dao markings was only part of it. What he truly wanted to know was whether continuing to increase the time Dao markings could really affect the traversal ability of the Heaven Palm bottle. Items containing the time law. Master Jingyang's brow twitched. He thought for a moment, then raised a hand and took out something. It was a small pale gold lock. An incomparably powerful fluctuation of time law radiated from the pale gold lock, far surpassing the broken time pot, the green wooden ruler, and the other objects Hanli had obtained before. The moment Hanli saw the golden lock, his eyes lit up. This is a time law immortal artifact. Though it is only 9th grade because it contains one of the 3 supreme laws, its value is comparable to a 7th grade immortal artifact. Last time I borrowed 80,000 Immortal Origin Stones from you. Now that you are leaving, it would not do for me to keep dragging out that debt. I shall use this golden lock to repay it, Master Jingyang said, a trace of reluctance flashing through his eyes as he handed it over. 9th grade immortal artifact? Are immortal artifacts graded as well? Why have I never heard of this before? Hanli asked, taking the golden lock. He was first delighted, then startled. You did not know? Well, that makes sense. Matters like this are generally known only to Tai cultivators, Master Jingyang said, somewhat surprised, then smiled and continued. Although any treasure of sufficient quality that contains law power may be called an immortal artifact, the difference between one immortal artifact and another can be immense. At 100 Creations Mountain, we rank them into 9 grades according to how much law power they contain. 9th grade is the lowest, 1st grade the highest. This golden lock is a 9th grade immortal artifact. The time law contained in this golden lock is so intense, and yet it is only 9th grade. Does that not mean that most of the immortal artifacts used by ordinary immortals are not even ranked? Hanli asked in astonishment. That is indeed the case. Ranked immortal artifacts are exceedingly precious. Generally, only Tai cultivators can obtain them. The artifacts in the hands of those below Tai are all unranked immortal artifacts. After all, for cultivators beneath the Gold Immortal Realm, being able to obtain 1 or 2 suitable immortal artifacts is already no easy thing. Why would they concern themselves with questions of rank? Master Jingyang said with a laugh. So that is how it is. I have learned something, Hanli said, nodding as he looked at the golden lock in his hand. The time law contained within this object was astonishingly strong. In terms of sheer quantity of law power, there were not many artifacts on his person that could compare. Much less merely repaying those 80,000 Immortal Origin Stones. Even if another 20,000 were added, he would still be willing. Master Jingyang's move very obviously carried the intention of drawing him in. Using this treasure to repay the 80,000 Immortal Origin Stones puts you at something of a loss, fellow Taoist Jingyang. Still, this is indeed something I need, so I will not refuse. Consider it that I owe you a favor, Hanli said solemnly, putting away the golden lock and looking deeply at Master Jingyang. Haha, there is no need to speak of favors. With those words from you, fellow Taoist Li, that is enough. A trace of satisfaction flashed through Master Jingyang's eyes. Giving away the golden lock had indeed been meant as an act of goodwill. He understood Hanli's character well. The fewer words a man spoke lightly, the more he valued his promises. Given Hanli's status as a heavenly pill master, he would surely be able to render great help someday. After chatting a little longer, the two bid each other farewell. Just as Hanli was about to fly off, a voice suddenly rang out in his mind. No matter where you go, fellow Taoist Li, do not use the Fireleaf Sect Elder token I gave you ever again. Hanli's body abruptly halted. He turned and looked back into Wild Crane Valley, surprise flashing through his eyes. The voice he had just heard was none other than Venerable Hot Flames. And within Venerable Hot Flame's cave dwelling, there was now no sign of anyone at all. Only a faint ripple of spatial fluctuation lingered in the air before vanishing completely. Though restrictions had been laid within Venerable Hot Flame's cave dwelling, they could not obstruct Han Li's 9 nether demon eyes. He withdrew his gaze from the cave, frowned slightly, and then, with green light rising across his body, turned into a streak of azure light and flew out of the valley. Suspended in midair, he cast a glance in the direction of Jukuin City. After a moment's thought, he did not head there, but instead flew south. Jukuin City did indeed have a teleportation array leading to other cities. But the city was a complicated place, and using the array would require the Elder Identity Token of the Fireleaf sect. With Venerable Hot Flame's warning in mind, Han Li decided it was better not to take that risk. At present he had no fixed destination anyway. For the moment, all he needed to do was avoid the turmoil within Floating Cloud Mountain, then find some quiet place to open a temporary cave dwelling and continue searching for a way to expel the baleful chi from his body, so that he could advance into the Tai realm as soon as possible. Judging from the current situation, the true Immortal Realm was now in upheaval everywhere, turbulent and treacherous. The grievances and entanglements between the Heavenly Court and the Reincarnation Palace, one in the light and the other in the dark, were of unknown origin but had clearly endured for countless tens of thousands of years, and now were only growing fiercer. He was no more than a mere gold immortal. Even if his strength allowed him to dominate cultivators of the same rank and protect himself against ordinary Tai cultivators, if he were ever swept into this vast storm, he would probably not even know how he died. For now there was only one course. Avoid the edge of the blade, improve his own strength, and strive to break into the Tai realm, thereby increasing his ability to survive in this chaotic age. No matter when, and no matter where, only by staying alive first did one earn the right to speak of anything else. According to the markings on the nearby map, if he continued south, the nearest great city where true immortals gathered was Jayun City, roughly 2 or 3 months away. As he flew onward, he spread out his spiritual sense to monitor the surroundings, and soon left the Floating Cloud Mountain range behind. Fortunately, nothing unexpected happened along the way. Han Li relaxed slightly. After flying a little farther and putting even more distance between himself and Floating Cloud Mountain, he finally summoned the green flying carriage, which became a streak of emerald rainbow light and shot onward. In the blink of an eye, more than half a month had passed. Han Li was seated cross-legged atop the flying carriage. Before him floated the golden lock, spinning without end. Golden light curled around it, releasing waves of time law fluctuations. His hands formed one incantation after another. Streams of spell seals shot out and merged into the lock. As he refined it, he carefully comprehended the time law contained within. A long while later, a flicker of understanding passed through his eyes. With a wave of one hand, the golden lock dropped back into his palm. Though he had not completely refined the object, he had already more or less grasped the time law within it. It was a kind of law power inclined toward confinement, somewhat similar to the ability of the mantra treasured wheel. Moreover, the quantity of law power in this lock seemed greater than that contained in the previous 3 immortal artifacts combined. Han Li estimated inwardly that if he absorbed this treasure, he might gain quite a number of time law crystal threads. Its power was significant enough, however, that he felt somewhat reluctant to part with it. Best wait for now. In any case, there is no hurry, Han Li thought. He opened his mouth and exhaled a mass of golden light that wrapped around the golden lock, drawing it into his body to continue refining. Afterward, he flipped a hand and took out a jade slip containing a map of the Black Mountain Immortal Region. By now, it had been close to half a month since he had left Floating Cloud Mountain. No one had followed him during that time, which reassured him somewhat. Only then had he dared spare attention to comprehending the golden lock. Below the flying carriage stretched a vast range of rolling mountains, each peak entirely black like charcoal. Between the mountains faintly curled bands of black mist, giving the place a rather strange appearance. In truth, most of the mountain ranges he had seen along the way had been this color. Presumably, that was why this immortal region was called the Black Mountain Immortal Region. Han Li withdrew his gaze from the strange black mountains below and pressed the jade slip to his forehead, thoughts stirring in his mind. The earlier Idle Cloud Mountain range and Jukuin City were situated in the extreme north of the Black Mountain Immortal Region, close to the barbarian wilderness. There was a saying that the latter had been built after the heavenly court seized a vast swath of land from the savage beasts of the barbarian wilderness in a great war tens of millions of years ago. The same was broadly true of the other immortal regions as well. Each time human cultivators expanded a little farther into the wilderness, they would establish a massive city like Jukuan City, then use it as a base to continue expanding, eventually forming an immortal region, while also building great cultivator cities and protected mortal kingdoms where life could flourish. Though few traces of savage beasts could be seen near Jukuan City, the place could not truly be called peaceful. Yet farther south from Jukuan City, though mountain ranges, wastelands and forests still appeared constantly and gave the land a desolate air, it was far safer than the area near the city. More and more mortal cities and kingdoms gradually appeared. The flying carriage moved with astonishing speed and soon passed over the black mountain range below. Ahead appeared a vast river. The river was nearly 1,000 li wide. Its waves surged mightily, crashing against the banks with rolling thunder, as if a giant flood dragon were hidden beneath its waters. The sight was magnificent. Comparing it with the map, Hanli concluded that the river below was most likely the Black Pine River. Beyond it lay a mortal kingdom called Yuanfeng. At least his course had not gone astray. At that very moment, Hanli's expression changed slightly. He turned to look off to one side, violet light flashing in his eyes, and surprise quickly appeared on his face. In that direction, far off in the distance, spiritual qi was fluctuating violently, mixed with strands of law power. Clearly, cultivators of considerable strength were engaged in fierce battle there, and their power was no small thing. At the very least, they were at the gold immortal level. The spiritual qi in this region was sparse. Within tens of thousands of li, there were only a few sects of the integration stage built against the mountains. How could there be gold immortal cultivators fighting here? Hanli formed an incantation, suppressing the light emitted by the flying carriage, then released his spiritual sense and quietly spread it toward the battlefield. His expression abruptly changed, and his face darkened with uncertainty. After hesitating for a moment, he put away the flying carriage. Green light flickered over his body, and he transformed into a blurred shadow that flew in that direction. A short while later, Hanli arrived among a range of black mountains and landed near an enormous depression. Several hundred li ahead, within that basin, many colored lights shot skyward. Explosive sounds like the roar of mountains and seas rang out without end. The fighting was extremely fierce. 3 golden-robed cultivators, 2 men and 1 woman, were besieging a white-haired old man. Judging from their robes, the 3 were all from the heavenly court. The leader was a yellow-haired, broad-faced giant with a brutal appearance. From the aura fluctuations coming from him, he was shockingly an Inspector Immortal envoy at the early Tai stage. The other 2, a masked young married woman and a somewhat stout scholarly youth, were both at late gold immortal cultivation. As for the white-haired old man, he was none other than Venerable Hot Flame. Why is Venerable Hot Flame here? And fighting with people from the heavenly court? Hanli's gaze flickered as thoughts turned in his mind. Around the yellow-haired giant swirled a thick layer of yellow cloud and mist that covered an area of dozens of li, radiating powerful fluctuations of the earth law. As the giant formed incantations with his hands, the yellow mist surged in furious waves, one after another smashing down toward Venerable Hot Flame. The other 2 each controlled a giant purple sword crackling with electric light, darting in from the flanks to strike whenever an opening appeared. They seemed to be a matched pair of immortal artifacts, and their power was likewise extraordinary. From time to time, thick bolts of purple lightning burst from the 2 giant swords and slashed down at Venerable Hot Flame. The 3 attacked in perfect coordination, their combined might terrifying. Yet though Venerable Hot Flame was 1 against 3 and had fallen into a disadvantage, his situation was not particularly dire. Above his head floated a crimson banner embroidered with a silver peacock, majestic in appearance. Thick columns of fire poured continuously from the banner, forming a sea of rolling flames around him and blocking the attacks from all sides. But the true reason Venerable Hot Flame was able to withstand the threefold assault did not lie in that crimson banner. Rather, it was the dazzling golden radiance flickering at his waist. It was an oval ancient mirror about a foot in size, golden in color and giving off an archaic feeling, as though it had settled for ages within the river of time itself. Wave after wave of golden light spread from the ancient mirror, extending several hundred zhang around him. Any attack from the yellow-haired giant and the other two that entered that zone immediately slowed tenfold, posing no real threat to venerable Hot Flame, who could easily evade or block them. Han Li's pupils constricted. The golden light waves emanated intense law fluctuations. It was the time law. That golden ancient mirror was clearly another time immortal artifact, and its grade was no lower than the golden lock in his possession. Huaqizhi, surrender now if you know what is good for you and tell us where that place is. The heavenly court will not treat you unfairly. Though unable to do anything to venerable Hot Flame, the yellow-haired giant showed no irritation at all. Waving both hands, he shouted loudly. Wave after wave of yellow mist poured from his sleeves, crashing down from all directions and binding venerable Hot Flame tightly in place. The other two also circled him at high speed, sending down thick streaks of lightning from every direction and sealing off all his avenues of escape. Seeing this, Han Li's gaze flickered. He seemed to realize something. What Huaqizhi? I am venerable Hot Flame, elder of the Fireleaf sect. Your heavenly court has gone too far. Today I will fight you to the bitter end. Venerable Hot Flame roared in fury. Suddenly he opened his mouth and spat out a mass of crimson essence chi, which flashed into the red banner, while he rapidly chanted an incantation. The crimson banner abruptly swelled several times in size, and from it burst fire pillars several times thicker than before. These pillars merged in an instant into a gigantic crimson sword as large as a mountain, and with the howl of an erupting volcano, it slashed viciously into the thick yellow mist around it. With a tearing sound, a huge gap was ripped open in the yellow mist. The flames on the giant sword scorched the edges of the opening, vaporizing a good portion of the yellow cloud. Though the flaming giant sword had opened a breach, its speed dropped drastically. Still, the fire upon it rolled and surged, producing a roar like that of a ferocious beast as it continued hacking outward. Heh! With your mere late gold immortal cultivation, you think you can break my myriad-mile yellow sand curtain? The yellow-haired giant clearly thought little of it and sneered repeatedly as he formed an incantation with both hands and pointed. The yellow mist nearby immediately began to churn. A flash of yellow light appeared before the flaming giant sword, and the surrounding mist condensed into a mountain 1,000 zhang tall, vivid and lifelike, like an immense peak that could support the heavens. The flaming giant sword struck the mountain with a thunderous boom and was immediately stopped. Not only that, but from the surrounding yellow mist shot countless earthen yellow rays like tentacles, wrapping around the flaming giant sword layer after layer until it could no longer move even the slightest bit. Now while we still can. Huang Dehan let out a cold laugh and shouted. The masked young woman and the fat young man did not waste a word. Their hand seals flashed rapidly, and streak after streak of violet lightning crashed down from midair onto the gigantic flaming sword. Purple and crimson light tangled wildly across the sword's surface. As the blade trembled, cracks began to appear along it, spreading at startling speed as though it were about to explode at any moment. But at that very instant, a strange gleam flashed through Venerable Hotfire's eyes. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood essence. With a sharp pop, the blood essence burst apart, turning into a dense cloud of bloody light that vanished in a flash into the crimson banner above his head. A tremendous muffled boom shook the air. The crimson banner blazed with brilliance, and the silver peacock embroidered upon it suddenly flew free from the fabric, turning into a streak of silver light that shot away in the direction opposite the crimson giant sword and plunged headlong into the earthen yellow clouds on the other side. The moment the silver peacock flew out, the crimson banner gave a soft puff and burst into flames, reducing itself to ashes in the blink of an eye. Venerable Hotfire paid the banner no mind. His hands moved like spinning wheels as he formed seals and drove them forward. At once, great waves of silver fire surged from the silver peacock's body and slammed into the yellow clouds. Violent explosions erupted where the two collided. The instant the silver flames touched the earth and mist, it was like cold water thrown into boiling oil, and a dense barrage of crackling detonations broke out. The silver peacock was clearly far stronger than the crimson flaming sword. The silver flames merely surged forward once, and the thick earthen yellow clouds ahead collapsed like rotten wood beneath the blade. A huge rent was ripped effortlessly through the dense mist. The silver peacock spread its wings and shot forward at terrifying speed, on the verge of tearing the yellow clouds open completely. Venerable Hotfire followed close behind it, his body wrapped in golden light, and it seemed he was about to break free of the encirclement. Damn it! Seeing this, Huang Dehan roared in fury and spat out a yellow feather fan. Dust-like spirit markings were engraved across it, and it radiated soaring spiritual light. His 5 fingers closed together around the handle, and he swung it viciously. A roaring gale burst forth. A thick yellow radiance poured from the fan, swelling wildly in an instant until it became a heaven-covering yellow storm that swept outward in every direction, engulfing both Venerable Hotfire and the silver peacock. The storm was terrifyingly powerful, enough to make heaven and earth lose color. Seen from afar, the entire mountain hollow and the surrounding 100-mile region were swallowed in an enormous yellow wind pillar. It rose straight into the sky, shredding the clouds overhead and spinning with a thunderous roar. Caught in the storm, the silver peacock immediately lost its stability. Its body began to turn with the cyclone, and there was no longer any question of pressing forward. Venerable Hotfire was also swept up by the enormous tempest, but a layer of golden ripples surrounded him. Any storm winds that entered the range of that golden light slowed at once. Though it did not do him much harm, it halted his flight all the same. Far away, Huang Dehan's figure flickered, and in the next moment he appeared out of thin air directly in front of Venerable Hotfire. Yellow light blazed from his body, and an enormous yellow spiritual domain spread out from him to cover the entire mountain hollow. Everything within the hollow sank at once, as if crushed beneath a weight of 10,000 tons. Get back! Huang Dehan clenched one fist and drove it into the empty air. A thunderous rumble rolled out. The yellow spiritual domain churned violently, and a gigantic yellow fist, 1,000 zhong in size, emerged and smashed into Venerable Hotfire. The fist was simply too large. Even the golden ripples around Venerable Hotfire could not stop it. With a deafening hum, the nearby void trembled. Venerable Hotfire was struck as if by a devastating blow and was hurled backward, forced once more into the encirclement. In the distance, Han Li remained motionless. The yellow storm raised by the giant man was astonishingly powerful, but by the time it reached him its force was already spent and posed no threat. Yet his brows were tightly furrowed, hesitation written across his face. A moment later his gaze sharpened, as if he had finally made up his mind. His body swayed, and he vanished from where he stood. After punching Venerable Hotfire back, Huang Dehan turned his eyes toward the silver peacock and pointed a finger. A sharp tearing sound rang out. A dazzling cluster of yellow light appeared at his fingertip, emitting a piercing screech. It condensed into a fine needle of brilliant yellow light and shot out, leaving behind a thread-like afterimage in the air, silent and deadly. At that moment the silver peacock was still trapped in the storm, its body spinning helplessly, though it continued to beat its wings in a desperate effort to steady itself. Then a slender streak of yellow flashed past, accompanied by a sudden shrill whistle. The silver peacock froze mid-struggle. A black hole the size of a fist appeared out of nowhere in the center of its brow, piercing clean through to the back of its head. It let out a mournful cry, and then its entire body exploded with a bang, turning into a skyful of silver flames that were instantly devoured by the surrounding yellow storm. On the other side, the flaming giant sword that had been bombarded by the masked woman and the fat youth finally burst apart as well, scattering into a rain of crimson flames that were swept away by the storm. With both the silver peacock and the flaming giant sword shattering at once, Venerable Hotfire's face turned pale. The protective light around him wavered and dimmed considerably, as though he too had suffered severe backlash. The golden ripples around him trembled and shrank by nearly half. Seeing this, Huang Dehan showed a trace of delight. He flung the yellow feather fan in his hand into the air, then opened his mouth and sprayed a stream of yellow vital energy into it. The feather fan burst forth with 10,000 rays of yellow light and rapidly grew larger, becoming a giant fan 100 zhong across. Every feather spread open, and the spirit markings on them flickered frantically. A powerful fluctuation of laws erupted from the giant fan, several times stronger than before, as it was about to sweep down upon Venerable Hotfire. The masked young woman and the fat young man both retreated at once, apparently unwilling to be caught in the attack. But just then, something unexpected happened. A streak of green light shot in from afar, and in a flash arrived before the yellow giant fan. It was a jade-green gourd. With a sharp hiss, a thick green radiance sprayed out from the gourd and wrapped itself around the giant fan. The towering yellow light the fan emitted touched the green radiance and immediately vanished as if snow meeting flame. At the same time, the fan itself rapidly shrank. Venerable Hotfire's face had flushed red as he prepared for a desperate final struggle, but when he saw this he stared in shock and his hands halted. "Who are you, skulking around like a coward?" Huang Dehan's expression changed abruptly. Roaring in rage, he waved a hand and sent a streak of yellow light into the feather fan. The dimmed yellow glow on the fan brightened slightly at once, and it began to struggle violently in an attempt to break free from the green radiance. But right then, with another hiss, a dark green line of light shot out instantly from the gourd and coiled around the yellow feather fan, twisting once. Crack! The yellow feather fan was sliced apart as easily as tofu. At once, the green radiance swept up the shattered fragments and flashed back into the jade-green gourd. Then the void behind the gourd flickered, and a figure in green slowly emerged from concealment. It was Hanli. His whole body, however, was enveloped in hazy azure light, making it impossible to see his face clearly. When Venerable Hotfire saw Hanli, surprise appeared in his eyes. "Who exactly are you? You dare interfere in the affairs of the immortal prison? Have you grown tired of living?" Huang Dehan's gaze swept over the jade-green gourd before settling on Hanli, and he asked in a low voice. "So I was right after all," Hanli said calmly. "Putting on airs. You're only a mere golden immortal. You happen to get hold of a profound heavenly treasure somewhere, and now you dare talk to me like this? Once I pull out your nascent soul and interrogate you properly, we'll see if you can still be so arrogant." Huang Dehan sneered. He slapped both hands toward his storage pouch, about to do something, but Hanli was faster. He slapped the bottom of the gourd like lightning. The emerald gourd tilted slightly and aimed itself at Huang Dehan. A pillar of green light burst from its mouth, and thunderous rumbling came from within. Inside the gourd, the green vortex had begun spinning violently in reverse. A green bamboo cloud swarm sword hovered at its center, wrapped in a mass of dazzling green light, trembling intensely as if on the verge of shooting out. But at that very moment, a ball of yellow light came flying from the depths of the gourd. Countless yellow runes churned within it, radiating astonishing fluctuations of law power. It was none other than the law force from the yellow feather fan that had just been shredded. The yellow light blurred and entered the green vortex. The instant it did, the two seemed to resonate with one another, both brightening at once. The green bamboo cloud swarm sword inside the vortex was immediately blasted away by a powerful force and squeezed out of the vortex's center. Hanli sensed everything taking place inside the gourd, and astonishment appeared on his face. Yet everything within it seemed to be evolving of its own accord, as if it had slipped beyond his control. A streak of yellow light shot from the gourd's mouth with a terrifying howl and vanished in an instant. Huang Dehan's face changed wildly. He shot backward at full speed, while countless yellow spirit patterns instantly appeared across his body, flew off, and in a flash transformed into an ancient yellow shield covered in archaic designs, blocking his front. In the next instant, a deafening explosion rang out. The yellow shield shuddered violently. A blinding burst of yellow light bloomed upon it, then vanished in a flash. A hole the size of a bowl had appeared in the shield. Behind it, Huang Dehan stood frozen, his face filled with utter disbelief. At the position of his lower abdomen, where his dantian lay, there was also a gaping hole. The wound was smooth and blackened, and not a drop of blood flowed from it. Even the ground behind him had been pierced through, leaving behind a black, bottomless tunnel that vanished deep into the earth. All of this had happened in the span of sparks flying from flint. More than 10 li away, the masked young woman and the fat young man were struck dumb with shock. Venerable Hotfire stared so wide-eyed, he looked as though he had seen a ghost. A flicker of delight crossed Hanli's face, and he immediately flicked a finger. A moment later, a flash of azure light appeared above the yellow-haired giant man's head. A small azure sword materialized from nowhere, wreathed in blue light, and slashed down at incredible speed. Rip! The giant man's body was split in two. The remnant soul within him was shredded to dust by the sword's razor-sharp chi. Only then did the masked young woman and the fat youth come fully back to themselves. They turned at once and fled in opposite directions, while rapidly bringing out one immortal treasure after another, transforming them into layers of light screens to protect themselves. At that moment, a red blur flashed before the masked woman, and venerable Hotfire appeared out of nowhere, blocking her path. He swept both hands out. Circles of golden ripples spread from his body and came crashing down toward her. She had been flying forward at full speed, and now plunged straight into the golden waves, where her body immediately slowed. "Weren't you arrogant just a moment ago? Now it's my turn." Venerable Hotfire gave a cold laugh. He formed a seal and pointed, and amid a shrill whistle several fiery red flying swords shot out, hacking down toward the masked woman. Hanli glanced in Venerable Hotfire's direction, then turned toward the fat youth, yet did not strike at once. His eyes shifted to the jade-green gourd. After a brief moment of thought, he slapped it once again. The fat youth's escape speed was astonishing. In the blink of an eye he had reached the edge of sight and was nearly vanishing into the distant sky. A streak of red light shot from the gourd's mouth impossibly fast. It appeared behind the fat youth in an instant. With a soft pop, all the layers of protective light around him shattered like paper beneath a single blow. A great hole was punched through the youth's lower abdomen as well, and the nascent soul within was destroyed in that strike. At the same moment, an azure sword flashed into existence above his head and slashed downward, splitting his body in two and grinding the remaining fragments of his soul to nothing. After cleaving the corpse, the azure sword released a stream of sword light that swept up the storage treasures from the fat youth's body and flew back. Hanli stood where he was without moving, staring at the jade-green gourd, his eyes flickering faintly. That streak of red light had been the law force absorbed into the gourd after it shredded the flaming immortal sword earlier. A faint smile touched the corner of his mouth, and with a turn of his hand he put the jade-green gourd away. Blue light flashed beside him as two small azure swords appeared, each carrying one of the storage treasures taken from the yellow-haired giant and the fat youth. Hanli waved a hand to collect both swords and the treasures, then flicked out two clusters of flame, burning the corpses of the yellow-haired giant and the fat youth to ash. At that moment a shrill scream rang out. Hanli looked up. In the distance, the masked woman had already become a figure of silver fire, blazing fiercely. Her hands flailed uselessly as she tried to extinguish the flames on her body, but it was all in vain. In the space of a breath she too turned to ash. Hanli's body blurred, and in the next moment he appeared beside Venerable Hotfire. "Fellow Taoist Li, is that you? Many thanks for your help," Venerable Hotfire said calmly as he turned to look at Hanli. "This is no time for idle talk. We need to leave first." Hanli formed a seal and swept both hands out. Two thick golden arcs of lightning shot from his palms, then split into countless golden bolts that wove together into a formation of thunderlight. A huge peal of thunder rang out, and the lightning formation blazed brilliantly. The figures of Hanli and Venerable Hotfire blurred and vanished from within the formation. Not long after the two disappeared, a point of five-colored lightning came shooting in from afar and appeared above the mountain hollow in a flash. The lightning flickered, revealing Sulu and a scholar-robed man standing beside him. Seeing what had happened below, both their faces sank. "Though it's very faint, I can still sense 3 traces of death chi and resentment. It seems Lian and the other 2 were all killed," Sulu said flatly. Huachitsi was only at the late golden immortal stage. With Lian's strength, plus those 2 subordinates of his who were also late golden immortals, even if they couldn't capture him, holding him in place should have been easy enough. How could they have been killed, and in so little time? The scholar-robed man said with a frown. Sulu swept his gaze over the scene below, then suddenly stiffened. He shot downward and landed beside the black, bottomless tunnel Hanli had blasted into the ground with the jade-green gourd. He crouched and touched the tunnel wall with his fingers. His expression became incomparably grave, and he murmured, "Incredible! Truly incredible!" The scholar-robed man landed as well, and the moment he saw the tunnel, his expression turned just as severe. This is definitely not something Huachitsi or Lian's group could have done. Someone killed Lian and the other 2 and rescued Huachitsi. This person is no simple figure, Sulu said slowly as he rose to his feet. The scholar-robed man began chanting under his breath. Watery white light radiated from the center of his brow and instantly spread across dozens of li. He formed hand seals, and the white light roamed everywhere like a living thing. That's right. Besides Yi Lian's group of 4, there was another aura here, probably the killer's. But this person was very cunning and left behind only the faintest traces. He was clearly prepared. In the end, he used a lightning spatial formation to transport himself and Huachitzi away, the scholar-robed man said after only a short while, as though he had witnessed it with his own eyes. Can you determine where that lightning formation led? Sulu asked at once. I'm afraid not. The transmission distance was too great. It exceeds the range of my deductions, the scholar-robed man replied, shaking his head. Sulu frowned and fell silent. What do we do now? The scholar-robed man asked after waiting some time and still receiving no answer. Since there are no more leads, we return first, Sulu said at last. Before the scholar-robed man could speak, Sulu waved a hand and unleashed 5 colored lightning that wrapped around both their bodies and shot them away in the direction from which they had come. Above an ancient dark green forest in the black soil immortal region, a curtain of silver lightning poured down like a silver waterfall, condensing in the void into a teleportation array of thunder. Han Li and Venerable Hotfire stepped out from within it. Once the lightning faded, both of them rose once more on escape light and continued flying south together. Only after several more days did they descend toward an old town nestled within a mountain hollow. After landing, neither of them spoke at once. Each used their own methods to completely conceal their aura, and only then did they walk into the town along the weathered stone road outside. At the boundary between town and wilderness stood a badly faded wooden archway. Moss covered the black tiles on its top, and across the beam beneath were carved 3 large characters. Green Forest Town. Han Li paused beneath the leaning archway, worn by wind and rain, and looked at the words. For no reason at all, he was reminded of the first place he had ever stayed after leaving his mountain village so many years ago, Green Ox Town. Only one word different, yet they belonged to 2 entirely different worlds, separated by 10,000 years. What is it, fellow Taoist Li? Venerable Hotfire asked with a slight furrow of his brow. Nothing. I was only reminded of a few things from the past, Han Li said, shaking his head. I'm already like a startled bird at the twang of a bough, and you still have the leisure to reminisce? Such composure, admirable, truly admirable. Venerable Hotfire said with a bitter laugh and a shake of his head. Although we headed generally south, we changed direction east and west several times along the way. So far it doesn't seem as though anyone has caught up. There's no need to be overly tense, Han Li said with a smile. The 2 passed beneath the archway and walked deeper into town. Though Green Forest Town was not large, its narrow streets were lined with tea houses, taverns, shops, and apothecaries of every sort. The place was lively and bustling. Before long they chose a tea house, requested a private room, and went upstairs to sit by the window. A servant brought up a pot of fine Yunshan mist tea along with several delicate pastries, then quietly withdrew, leaving Han Li and Venerable Hotfire alone to drink. Han Li lifted his teacup and inhaled gently. A fresh fragrance entered his nose, and his brows rose slightly. I didn't expect such a remote place to have tea this good, he said with some surprise. Venerable Hotfire took a sip, smacked his lips, and clearly did not find it worth much praise. This time I owe you another debt of gratitude for saving me, fellow Taoist Li. He glanced down at the street outside the window before turning back to Han Li, his expression solemn. Rather than talking about that, why not tell me why you were being hunted by people from the Immortal Palace? Han Li asked evenly. That? Fellow Taoist Li, forgive me, but I cannot explain it plainly, Venerable Hotfire said with some difficulty. That's fine. I can guess a few things. There must be some problem with your sect. Earlier you warned me not to use my identity as an outer elder of the Fireleaf sect. I assume it was because of this. You helped me in the valley before, so this time I merely repaid the favor, Han Li said, waving a hand. That was part of it. More than that, I simply didn't want to stir up more complications, Venerable Hotfire said with a sigh, speaking honestly. Han Li smiled faintly at that and took a sip of tea. He was just about to speak again when his face suddenly changed. He sprang up from the table. With a turn of his wrist, a green bamboo cloud swarm sword crackling with lightning appeared in his palm. Venerable Hotfire was only a heartbeat slower. He also rose, formed hand seals, and followed Han Li's gaze toward the door of the private room. At that moment, a streak of silver light suddenly appeared out of nowhere there, and waves of intense spatial fluctuation spread from it. A cold gleam flashed in Han Li's eyes, and azure light flared abruptly from his body. The force of the aura that erupted from him made even Venerable Hotfire's eyelid twitch. Please do not attack. I am not from the Immortal Palace, nor do I bear any ill intent. A rather familiar voice sounded from within the silver light. Two figures emerged. One wore a purple robe, with curling white hair atop his head and a strikingly handsome face. The other was dressed in black, youthful in appearance and somewhat lean. It was actually them. Han Li immediately recognized the two newcomers as Shi Chuankong and the Samsara Palace thief Fox 3, but his guard did not lower in the slightest. He said nothing further and instead turned his gaze toward Venerable Hotfire, because both Shi Chuankong and Fox 3 were also staring at him. Who are you? Venerable Hotfire asked. Light shimmered around him as his gaze swept past Fox 3 and landed on Shi Chuankong. My name is Shi Chuankong. I imagine you've never heard of me, fellow Taoist. But that doesn't matter. All you need to know is why we have come to find you, Shi Chuankong said with a faint smile, bowing slightly. As he spoke, his eyes swept across Han Li for a moment, and a trace of puzzlement flashed in their depths. So it was you. At the auction in Yukuan Tower, you certainly fought me hard over several treasures. Your family resources must be rather impressive, the black-robed young man said with a raised brow and a chuckle. A famous thief like the Silver Fox surely wouldn't stoop to holding a grudge over something so minor? Han Li replied with a small smile, utterly at ease. Haha, you worry too much. We came today for fellow Taoist Hotfire, Fox 3 said with a laugh. And what business do you have with me? Venerable Hotfire asked, the vigilance in his eyes growing heavier as he unconsciously shifted a little closer to Han Li. Let's not play games. You should know perfectly well why we've come, Shi Chuankong said, looking back at Venerable Hotfire. Hearing that, Han Li turned his gaze slightly toward Venerable Hotfire, confusion stirring in him. I don't know what you're talking about. Since there has never been any grudge between us, it would be best if we each went our own way. Fellow Taoist Li, let us go, Venerable Hotfire said without changing expression. Fellow Taoist Hotfire, after all these years, do you really not wish to return to your sect and have a look? Fox 3 suddenly raised his voice. You, and what would there be to return to? Nothing but broken walls and ruined stones. I truly do not understand. The past is already smoke on the wind. Why are you so unwilling to let it go? Venerable Hotfire faltered, fell silent for a long time, and then spoke again. Although Han Li found their words difficult to follow, he could tell that the two men meant no harm. He therefore put away the sword in his hand. Fellow Taoist Hotfire, it isn't that we refuse to let it go. Heaven's court is still pursuing us relentlessly. Why do you think the Fireleaf sect is being watched by the Immortal Palace? Why do you think chaos keeps erupting in Idle Cloud Mountain? Surely you understand these things better than we do, Fox 3 said with a sigh. Hearing this, Han Li's heart stirred again. So that was why Venerable Hotfire had repeatedly warned him not to use his identity as an elder of the Fireleaf sect. There were indeed many hidden complications behind it. He had suspected as much before, but now it was almost confirmed. Yuzuki's earlier ambush had likely also been because of him. Who exactly are you? Please tell me plainly, Venerable Hotfire said after a long silence. To be frank, I am from the Samsara Palace, and this fellow Taoist sure comes from the Devil region, Fox 3 said with a blink. What? Even the Devil race has chosen to form an alliance with the Samsara Palace? Venerable Hotfire asked in surprise. You overestimate me, fellow Taoist Hotfire. I, Shi Chuankong, am merely an insignificant nobody. How could I represent the entire Devil race? The reason I am here today is first because Fox 3 invited me and second because I have some curiosity about what happened to the True Word sect all those years ago. I wonder if you could shed some light on it, Shi Chuankong said with a smile. When Han Li heard the words True Word sect, his face remained still, but inwardly he was profoundly shaken. This sect was anything but unfamiliar to him. Not only had the scripture of the true word wheel that he cultivated originated from that sect, but his earlier soul transmigration had also taken him there. Moreover, Shi Chuankong's casual tone was almost laughable. Someone who wielded one of the three supreme laws, spatial law, could hardly be some nameless nobody of the devil race. When the true word sect was destroyed, I happened to be away on training by my master's command and became trapped inside a desperate ruin. By the time I finally escaped, nearly 1,000 years had passed. By then, the remaining elders and disciples of the sect had all become wanted criminals of heaven's court. I had no choice but to alter my bones and face and flee far away. I too have always wanted to know the cause of the sect's calamity. Otherwise, I would never have risked coming to the Black Mountain Immortal Region and founding the Fireleaf sect as a cover, Venerable Hotfire said with a sigh. So your long seclusion in Idle Cloud Mountain was also for the sake of hiding your tracks? Hanli asked suddenly. Not entirely. The main reason I spent most of my time in Wild Crane Valley was because I got along well with fellow Taoist Duan and the others. Our temperaments suited one another. I never imagined that in the end even Idle Cloud Mountain would be dragged down because of me, Venerable Hotfire said, guilt appearing in his eyes. You need not blame yourself. The Immortal Palace has wanted to move against Idle Cloud Mountain for a long time anyway. Much of it is to root out the hidden strength of our Samsara Palace there, Fox 3 said with a smile. There is one thing I do not understand. Earlier, one of our fellow Taoists in the valley was ambushed and grievously injured. Was that the work of your Samsara Palace, or of the Immortal Palace? Hanli suddenly asked. You mean the one on Clearwind Cliff? The person who wounded him was a fellow carrying a red umbrella and dressed in an effeminate way. He didn't seem like someone from the Black Mountain Immortal Palace. More likely one of the Immortal Envoy's subordinates, Fox 3 said, looking at Hanli. In that case, it was you who saved him? Hanli asked, his brow lifting. I saw the kid had some backbone. He would rather blow up his sea of consciousness than be soul-searched, so I lent him a hand. But I honestly didn't expect you people would really manage to save him. Impressive, truly impressive, Fox 3 said, rubbing his chin, his tone carrying a hint of admiration. Fox 3, you're wandering off again. Better get back to the main point, Shi Chuankong interrupted, clearing his throat. Bad habit. Well then, fellow Taoist Hotfire. Now that Heaven's Court has already found your trail, you can no longer hope to live peacefully in the future. You might as well become our ally and go with us to search for the remnants of the True Word sect. Afterward, I can introduce you into the Samsara Palace, and under its protection you would be much safer. What do you say? Fox 3 asked. Venerable Hotfire looked uncertain and did not agree at once. The True Word sect ruins may be difficult to find, but it is not as though we absolutely require your help. If you truly have difficulties, we will not force you. But Heaven's Court may not be nearly so reasonable as we are, Shi Chuankong said with a smile. What fellow Taoist sure says is true. Heaven's Court will certainly chase you without end. Next time you may not be able to escape. And don't you also want to uncover the mystery of the destruction of the True Word sect? Cooperation would benefit us both. Fox 3 continued persuading him. Hanli watched the pair, one playing the kindly persuader, the other the quiet threat, and inwardly sneered, though he said nothing. After all, the matter had little to do with him. Putting everything else aside, surely you do not wish for the grand five elements illusory world art left behind by ancestor Miluo to fall into the hands of Heaven's Court? Fox 3 said. That single sentence struck Venerable Hotfire like a hammer to the chest. His pupils widened at once. No need to be so surprised. The Samsara Palace has many channels for information. One of the main reasons Heaven's Court has been so eager to enter the True Word sect ruins is because of that very art, Shi Chuankong said with a smile. And what about you? Is that not your goal as well? Venerable Hotfire asked coldly. Rather than saying we want the technique for ourselves, it would be more accurate to say we do not want it to fall into the hands of Heaven's Court. At least on that point our interests are aligned, Fox 3 replied, not bothering to deny it. Very well. I agree to form an alliance with you, Venerable Hotfire said at last after a long silence, nodding. Haha, fellow Taoist Hotfire, now that is a wise decision. I always enjoy speaking with clever people, Fox 3 said, clapping his hands. Wait. If I am to join, you must first agree to one condition, Venerable Hotfire said suddenly. Please name it, Fox 3 replied, his brow rising slightly. In saving me this time, fellow Taoist Li killed people from the Immortal Palace and has already been dragged into this because of me. So this action must include him as well, Venerable Hotfire said, glancing toward Han Li. Well, Fox 3 hesitated. Fox 3, I think that is fine. From the past few days of shadowing and observing, it is clear this fellow Taoist Li cannot be one of Heaven's court. There is no harm in inviting him to join us, Shi Chuankong suddenly said. Since Brother Shi has put it that way, then fellow Taoist Li may come with us as well, Fox 3 said with a nod. Many thanks for your kind intentions, but when I rescued fellow Taoist Hotfire earlier, it was only because of old acquaintance and to repay the favor of his once bringing me into his sect as an elder. As for this true word sect ruin you speak of, I truly have little interest in it. I will not be joining this lively affair, Han Li said, suddenly cupping his hands. All three of the others looked slightly surprised. Fellow Taoist Li, perhaps you do not realize how vast the Samsara Palace's power truly is. If you travel with them, you can draw upon their resources and strength, avoid many troubles, and perhaps even leave the Black Mountain Immortal region safely. Even if you do not wish to go to the True Word sect ruins, there is no harm in going with them until you reach a safe place and part ways afterward, Venerable Hotfire said anxiously, transmitting his voice to Han Li. Fellow Taoist Hotfire, you know my situation. I am already exhausted dealing with the decline of baleful qi. I have no spare energy to involve myself in anything else. The Immortal Palace's pursuit is aimed mainly at you. As long as I am careful, I should not face too much trouble. I will not take part in this, Han Li said aloud instead of replying by voice transmission. As for how powerful the Samsara Palace was, Han Li naturally understood perfectly well, and he could tell that Venerable Hotfire truly meant well. But at present his thoughts were fixed entirely on how to rid himself of the baleful qi. He had little interest in exploring ancient ruins. Only because it was the ruin of the True Word sect had he hesitated at all. Yet after weighing everything, he still decided not to wade into these troubled waters.